Hello, Tech Forum attendees. I'm Carol Gordon, Project Manager for the BNC CataList project here at BookNet, and I'm pleased to be presenting to you today a review of some of the things that were new in Catalyst this past year, and a preview of some of the things that we're working on for the new year coming at us. I don't need to tell you that the past year was unlike any other, but I do want to acknowledge it here, because the effects that the pandemic had on our publisher, library, and retailer communities certainly shifted the priorities around support requests and Catalyst needs throughout the year. With restricted travel and in-person meeting limitations, we began to see an increase in activity on e-catalogues, which ramped up as lockdown measures rolled out and then persisted beyond original expectations. Then, with the extensive shifting of release dates for previously announced spring and summer publications, we began to get more frequent requests for assistance in tracking changes to planned book releases and for other retailer communication tools. We also saw a corresponding jump in publisher subscriptions and a particularly dramatic increase in retailer signups, which incidentally is continuing to this day. In response to the new needs, early in the year, the Catalyst team revisited an existing feature, our change tracking reports in the system, and we updated them to include more information about titles that were changing and allow some new filtering options on those lists. Communication on independent retailer promotions were similarly identified as a priority need, and a new publisher promotion submission form and a promotions list feature were also added to support this need. Beyond that, as more reps and buyers moved to a more integrated use of online catalogs in their processes, we also maintained a real focus on training this year, running some of our best attended training webinars for retailers, libraries, and sales reps. Those webinars were all recorded, by the way, and are available on the BookNet YouTube channel in a Catalyst playlist. So we'll share the direct link to those webinars in the notes for this session for anyone who's interested in getting a more detailed overview of Catalyst tools and features than we can cover in this session. So while the smaller features, the day-to-day activities were being updated and managed in the early part of the year, the development team also continued with some major feature additions to the system throughout the year. Following on last year's quick search upgrade, the team finished building out a flexible set of advanced searching tools in November. I won't get into too much detail in this session, but I'll do a quick overview of what's available in the advanced search, as there are several ways that you can now set parameters for searching titles across publishers in Catalyst. So the first section lets you specify the fields that you want to search for matches in, including title, contributor, subject fields, series, publisher, distributor, imprint of course, and publisher keywords. You can also add more parameters in this section and use Boolean operators to query the data set in more specific ways. So in the example that I'm showing on the slide, you can search for books with Lego in the title, and you can add an additional parameter to return only books that are published by DK. So alternately here, you could also change that Boolean operator to not in order to return any books with Lego in the title that are not published by DK. Then below that section, we have a new subject tree tool, which allows you to select specific BISAC or thema codes to include in your search criteria. So for those of you who use sales data, one of our other products, the subject tree structure is going to be largely familiar to you. To use the subject tree tools, you'll choose your subject scheme preference, BISAC by default, and click the Add Edit Subject button. You can then search or browse the list to select one or more of the subjects to include in your search criteria. A sidebar here about thema subject codes. So in last year's presentation, I talked a bit about the growing interest in the thema subject scheme, and that interest has continued to ramp up through 2020. The thema workshop in this year's Tech Forum schedule sold out and had an extensive wait list as retailers are beginning to recognize the value of thema for discovery, particularly in their online environments. So you can expect to see growing support for thema subjects in Catalyst, and I think we'll see that across the industry. Moving on to the right side of the advanced search form, you can preset some filters and ranges. So for example, if you want to limit your search to Canadian authors only, or titles from your favorite publishers list, or just to recent additions to the CataList site. And then further over, you can also set publication date ranges or limit results by price, format, audience, language, using multi-select drop-down boxes for those elements. And then a further addition to the search features in the past year is a new results grid view. So you now have the ability to switch between the standard list view of search results and this new customizable search results grid. And that segues us over nicely into the next major feature addition that we released just earlier this month. And that is the ability for individual users in an account to set their own column preferences for catalog views and exports, in addition to the account level column settings. So using the Customize Columns tool, you can now choose the columns that you want to see in your grids and exports, and easily switch between the account level column settings and your own custom columns. In order to further support this, we've also added new columns for both the individual and account levels, including measures like height, width, depth, and weight, and some more bibliographic data columns like language, availability, and yes, FEMA subjects are all now supported as columns in the grid. So in addition to viewing columns, you also now have the ability to choose when you're exporting your catalogs or orders to Excel or a CSV format, you have the option to choose at the time of export whether you want to use the account level column settings or your own custom columns that you've set on your catalog grid view. So we're pretty excited for this release. It's been high on our priority list for a while to introduce these individual column selection tools, and the changes have already been getting positive feedback from our site users. So we're excited to hear if this change is really working out well for you. And so up next, with our recent release out the door, that means that, of course, we are already working on the next set of improvements. We don't slow down much on the CataList team. And so this is the fun part where I get to give you a preview of some of the things that we have coming up and what you can expect to see from the CataList team in the coming year. First up, one of the things we're working on right now is pulling in price and availability file data that we're getting from distributors into the BiblioShare system and integrating those into the title detail pages in CataList. So this is an early mock-up, it's not real data, of the planned integration that I'm just showing here. And so this is the type of thing you can expect to start seeing on the view title pages, title detail pages, for titles that are in the supply chain a little bit later this spring. So if we aren't getting price and availability files for some of the lines, we'll also be doing conducting some outreach this spring to start getting those files in and supplied. So early indications from clients that we've been talking to show that this might be one of the most popular additions to CataList functionality in the coming year. Another industry hot topic is accessibility data. So this is a priority for CataList to introduce display support aimed for this spring to get this feature rolled out. So we are already working on this in our development environment, and we are expected to roll it out later this spring. So this is particularly in relation to ebooks and digital audio product. And if you're not listing your ebooks on CataList right now, it may still be of interest in terms of what CataList is going to be supporting for discovery on digital products. So whether you're listing, and if you are listing ebooks yourself on CataList or through the eBound catalog initiative, and even if you aren't listing your ebooks at all, in all of those cases, we would really encourage you to tout the accessible features of your digital products in your Onyx data to support discovery of those accessibility features throughout the supply chain. So beyond the new data points, and there's a few others that we'll be working in this year, we'll have a few new major features this year. We haven't completely finished with our suite of tools for the search features just yet. So you can watch for more search support features to come in this coming year, starting with the ability to save your search criteria and run those saved searches really quickly and easily. The saved search feature will allow saving of multiple criteria combinations from the advanced search form. So you can save them as named searches that you can rerun at need. For niche retailers, their reps, this will save you a lot of effort in setting up search criteria each time that you want to run a search. And the ability to save those limiters to include only added titles from the last 2 or 7 or 30 days in CataList will let you quickly access those new additions to CataList and only the ones that are of interest to you. So beyond that, we're interested to see how the saved search feature gets used in practice when we release this later this year. I think it's going to be a real time saver for some of our retailer and library clients. And then beyond just these few preview items that I previewed today, there will absolutely be more system upgrades to come this year as we continue moving toward integrating BTLF's Memento French data onto the CataList platform. So we have some additional planned upgrades to the order creation and submission tools in CataList to support this integration that we're drafting now and beginning to review with existing clients and our user groups that we work with. I guess what I would like to just say in terms of that is that if you want to keep up to date with all of the new features that we have for the CataList project as we roll them out, you can absolutely sign up in your CataList settings for our newsletter. We also run a beta program that you can opt into in your settings as well. So for anyone who's interested in getting early access to the new features before they're fully released, you can sign up for that beta group. Alternately, just drop us a line at the catalyst@booknetcanada.ca team support address, and we can make sure that you are signed up to get the information that you're interested in. So that address is also where you can reach the team anytime with any of your questions or comments about the features or plans that I covered here today, or really just any of your CataList needs. So thanks for listening in on the presentation today, and we really look forward to working with you in the year ahead.